Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today I'm going to work on my hay baler a little bit and try to get this thing timed and up and running again. Last time I was running it, the plunger came back and hit the stops like it had jumped out of time a little bit, and those stops pop up there to keep the plunger from coming back and hitting the needles. So something had caused it to get out of time enough to cause those to be up whenever the plunger came back. So we're going to go through it and check that stuff out, try to retime what needs to be timed. There's 2 points of timing on this baler, so going to go through those and try to get them timed up. We're going to get it running again, and then hopefully kind of go through and maintain everything, or sharpen knives and, you know, adjust needles and the knotters, anything that needs to be done, and give this old baler one more shot at redemption. And if we can get it going again, hopefully for the fall cut we'll be able to bale us up a bunch of square bales with it. So according to the manual, this baler has what's called a wad board, and according to the manual it's supposed to be about 3.5 inches from the bale chamber wall whenever the plunger is in its farthest away position. And right now it's going to be hard for me to probably show this on camera, but I'm going to try to. I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but it's about 4.5, maybe even 5 inches. So we're going to get underneath this thing and see if I can't get that wad board adjusted over where it's supposed to be at. I mean, it's not off by a whole lot, but on these balers, if you get them a little bit out of time, I mean, it's enough. So we're going to adjust that and then kind of run it through some tests manually, not hook it up to the tractor yet, but just kind of wheel it over and check all the parts and clearances and all that kind of stuff, and see where it's at before we actually hook it up to the PTO on a tractor and fire it up. So this is what the underside of this thing looks like, and here's our chain that connects to our wad board. And this wad board is up inside the bale chamber and has got fingers in it that pushes the hay into the baling chamber. So this thing slides back and forth. Like the newer balers have fingers that stick down in here, and they slide back and forth, and like they toss hay over into the bale chamber. What we've got to do, I've already taken the tension loose on this chain, and I've got to slide this over by skipping a few teeth on the cog. So I've got the chain loosened up enough to just skip some teeth to move that thing over a little bit. So what I ended up doing on this thing, there's a little end here on the wad board that hooks onto the chain, and I took it loose so that I could put the wad board in the position that it needed to be in, and then I'm going to skip the teeth on the chain and then rehook it back to the wad board deal. That way I'm not having to try to move the chain and slide the board all at the same time. So I just slid the board in place. Now I'm going to move the chain to match where the board is sitting at. So I fired this thing up and it seems to be working. Everything seems to be in time. I haven't tried to run any hay or anything like that through it. But this old baler, this is a new Holland 66. And the way that this thing works, it's got, of course, your drive over here, your plunger, all that stuff. But then you've got your hay pickup. It has an auger to feed the hay over towards the bale chamber. But then as it goes off the end of the auger, it's got this deal right here that slides, that's going to push it back to the wad board. And see, this is just a wooden board in here that's got a metal end on it. You can't see it right now, but it's got a metal end on it that goes and stuffs the hay that this pushes back, and it goes, the fingers come over and grab that hay and stuff it over into the bale chamber, and then the plunger comes back and then forces it back into the chute or the bale chamber to form the bale all the way back. And then of course, obviously, whenever it gets full enough to trip the knotters, then kicks the knotters up, the needles come up, tie a knot. But this is a really old baler. I think that the dealer said that this thing was built between like 1949 and 53 or something like that. That's when the new Holland 66 was built. This thing seems to bale really good bales whenever it bales, but the problem is, like, I don't know if I'm just trying to run it too hard or what, but it breaks. And me not being experienced with running a baler, it's not just like a shear pin that busts or something like that. It's usually something, or has been something major in it. Like when it jumped time, that wad board actually come over and smacked into I guess the plunger and stuff in there, and bent those fingers back beyond repair. So I had to try to go to a junkyard and get new parts for it, and I rebuilt all that stuff, put a new wad board in it, and that was a big job getting all those screw holes and stuff lined up. Here's a look at those fingers. That's on the end of the wad board, and these fingers are in the bale chamber, and whenever that hay comes back into here, then the wad board slides over and shoves that bundle of hay over into the plunger. But these things, if you get this out of time and it smacks into your plunger, then you are in trouble, because it doesn't stop, it just breaks. And these parts now are getting hard to find. You can't really replace this kind of stuff hardly unless you find it in a junkyard or something. So I'm gonna fire this thing up and show you what's going with it. Which I'm only gonna run it at idle right now, because this thing's been sitting for, it's probably been a year or so, and it needs to be gone through and greased up at all the grease points and lubed on some of the slides and that kind of stuff before I really start trying to push the speeds or anything on it. So I've got everything tightened down on it. Last time it broke, I'm pretty sure it was my fault. I think the hay baler, it was running better than it ever ran. I was running some hay into it. It wasn't tying though, and I think I figured out why that it wasn't tying. Hopefully that's why it wasn't tying, because it's really simple. I almost don't want to tell it, but down inside the little twine box, the twine was in a big knot right up against the lid on the twine box on one side, and it was one side that wasn't tying. Now that I've found that, which I don't know why I wouldn't have checked it whenever it was going on then. I just kept, I kept running hay through it and stuff, just trying to get it to, I was doing this or doing that and trying to keep the little duckbill things cleaned off and trying to make sure it wasn't something in there. But then I didn't think to make sure that the twine box wasn't knotted up or something, which it was. And I'm hoping that that's why that it wasn't tying. I've seen a lot of stuff online, like about the knives not being sharp, or several other things with the knotters and stuff that could cause it to not tie. And I thought maybe it was something to do with that. But it seemed like that every time that, well, I don't know, maybe that wasn't it, because I would tie off the twine, I would pull it through and then tie it off to restart the twine again, and when it'd go to, the needles would come up, the twine would either, I don't know if it was breaking or not tying the knot. So if it was hung up, then it was probably breaking, and that would be exactly why it wasn't tying. So it might have just been operator error. I may just not have checked that. It may not have anything to do with it, and that knot came from, who knows, maybe a little bit later or something. But if it's that simple, I'm gonna feel really stupid. But anyways, let's fire this thing up. I'll show you what it's got going on right now. Better move my WD-40 before it falls off and gets hung up in the machine. As you can see, when this thing's running, that wad board, and that's what actually stuffs into the bell chamber. So I'm pretty happy I got it running again. I know nothing about hay balers or, you know, farming as far as actual farming goes, because, I mean, me and my wife are new to the whole property thing and stuff like the hay side or the farming side and using equipment and stuff like this. Completely new to us. And, you know, we're all the time just trying to make it a little bit farther, learn a little bit more about doing this, and it seems like the only way that you can learn about it is to get right into it and, you know, work on it, do it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it don't, sometimes it costs you a lot of money. I didn't spend a lot of money on the hay baler, but I've gotten about 85 bales of hay out of it, and it's definitely not paid for itself, I'll put it that way. But it's been a good learning experience, because all this stuff on this old baler pertains to new balers. And, you know, you can get one that's 30-40 years newer and they've got the same knotter system on them and everything works the same, except for a couple things like they don't have wad boards on them anymore. And if I'm not mistaken, the timing on it is not in two places. You only have to time it in one place. Whereas this one, you actually have to time your plunger side and your needles, your needle side with your plunger, and then you have to time that wad board to be in time with your plunger so that they're not smacking into each other. And if one of them does get out, then it's catastrophic. And the thing is, it's got shear pins in it, but I haven't broke shear pins. I don't know if maybe I've tried to put what they call for from the factory in there, and it seems to, you know, either be too strong or they don't break, or because, I don't know. But, you know, I've replaced sprockets on it, which one of the sprockets was really worn. So I think that's a lot of it. Whenever it got pressure on it, that the chain would slip and cause it to just jump out of time, as opposed to breaking the shear pin that's in the, like the chain for the wad board. But anyways, that's on another story. I'm gonna try to go over this thing and try to run some hay into it and see if it'll start tying knots, and I'll keep you updated. If you like videos like this, make sure you click that thumbs up button, subscribe. Thanks for watching.